been some discussions about, you know, three-dimensional, fourth-dimensional, fifth, sixth, seventh ascension. And what I wanted to talk about was the fact that I'd had an encounter with a race of beings that we call the Honorians. And the reason that it's significant is because none of these constructs actually exist with the Honorians. So when we talk about the Zetas exist in three-dimensional space, but are basically multiphasic. They can phase in and out. I'd say the Palladians are pretty much the same. The Arcturians as well. You know, and you know, I think for conversational purposes, we do talk about dimensions, different dimensions, because we need to have some way to set the narrative of the discussion.
Needed to be a framework.
Yeah, there's a framework. Yeah.
But I think we've said recently that as we've grown in our understanding of consciousness and the way we and other races exist, that framework really feels redundant, that it's becoming very outdated and very restrictive in terms of how it allows a person to understand how they exist and how they fit into the universe.
So years ago, I was doing what's called our gateway work. It's where you go into trance states, which is an altered state, and using different levels of trance. If you're trained, you're able to move through to what's called a gateway experience. Now, a lot of people use psychotropics and these things. Not that I'm saying people should do that to have a gateway experience, but you have everything that you need within you to have these gateway experiences if you train yourself.
You don't need any.
You don't need anything.
Assistance of any sort.
Yeah. And so I went through. I was with the Zetas. I went through a gateway, and I came out in this place. There was nothing, and it was like some void. I mean, it wasn't that there was nothing. There was the absence of nothing, which I don't even know how to explain that. And there was this void, and like a pinhole of light. And I thought, well, I'll just move towards that. And as I did, it got larger and larger until I was sort of standing in front of this fairly big, it looked like a big glass window, and I could see through to the other side, and it looked like there was an extreme infinite plane of light. And I thought that I had come across God at that point. I don't mean in a religious sense, in a sense that I didn't really understand what was going on. That was the first thing. I hadn't even had any contact with anybody, and all I saw was this extreme infinite plane of light. All of a sudden, telepathically, there was this contact that I had with these beings, if you want to call them that. And all they thought to me was, do I want to come closer? And even the thought, I automatically started to move forward in consciousness. And I felt my construct, my mind starting to collapse. It was as though outside of the void, the construct can exist, because I would suggest that there are things in quanta, and quanta is what allows us to have all facets of creation, the ability to create. But in the void area, there is no quanta. There is no ability to exist in any type of construct. Your mind is a construct. It has sets of rules, thoughts, processes, automatic processes, and it helps you to navigate through your daily life. You see a tree, you know what a tree is. You see a car, you know what a car is. But with the beings who I came to know as the Honorians, I realized that they don't utilize these processes. As I moved close to this window, we'll call it, and even that was a construct, there was like big cracks appeared, and I felt myself disappearing. I quickly moved away from that source consciousness and then came back out of trance states. And a few days later, I was just walking along, and I'd stopped because suddenly everything started to become distorted around me, and everything suddenly went clear. The trees, the buildings, the ground. I could see everything was just translucent and clear. And I said to the Zeta, said, I don't want this, because this is what it looks like reality truly is without the construct. And without the construct, you're just walking in this holographic environment.
It's very confronting.
It was very confronting, yeah. Yeah. I actually decided a couple of weeks later to go back to see if I could get any closer to these beings. And I realized that if I stayed on my side of this window, that they could talk to me without me having a problem with my construct. I had another medium as well that was able to go into trance states and do gateway work, and they were also with me when we went to see the Honorians, so we were both in trance states. We had a talk to these Honorian beings, and what they showed us was that for them to experience anything, they need to extend their consciousness away from themselves and forget that they have done that, so that this consciousness can then animate into an avatar or some sort of construct, and then they can interact with the construct in a way that it gives them experience. This then showed us that they're doing this with all things. They're doing it with you. They're doing it with us. They're doing it with all matter. And so basically, if we call these beings who are not God, but a subset of God, or one step away from that, these beings are experiencing all life through levels of existence, whether it's dimensional, interdimensional, multiphasic, matter, or whatever. And so we can see, if we talk about ourselves and you as well, going, who are we? Where do we come from? We go back to source. We are these beings externalized into this existence.
Yeah. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that this framework of dimensional existence doesn't really work when you begin to understand that everything is all interrelated, that the phenomena that we see is all interrelated. We are all interrelated, and that we are actually already beings of consciousness. We're already operating in 4D and 5D, whether we realize it or not. It does really make you realize this. We're 3D and we're ascending to 4 and 5D. It neutralizes all of that, because you have to realize we're already existing like that.
Yeah. All you are really is, if you think about it, your source, and you've externalized yourself down through a dimensional construct into a three-dimensional existence.
A perception
of
3D
three-dimensional existence.
Capable already of 4D, 5D processes. What is communing with spirit people or extraterrestrials? What is what is thinking? What is telepathic communication? What is remote viewing? What is dreaming? What is lucid dreaming? What is astral travel? When you think about all these different processes that we do, these are processes of consciousness already. And to feel and to have your gut instinct to know and to think, these are all consciousness processes. We're so far beyond, humans are so far beyond 3D already. It's just recognizing that and learning to have some degree of control over it.
I think in some way you could say that you are the mind of God. And then the mind of God is you. The mind of God is expansive, infinite facets of all things that exist. But so how do we relate that back to this, to now, to seeing, say, spirits, having NDEs, astral traveling, contact? Basically, this this, the Honorians or source consciousness, is experiencing itself through you, through your experiences. And you today, Cyan experiences a spirit, and that spirit person is an extension of source.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I experience an extraterrestrial, whether it doesn't matter what physical or non-physical dimension they're from. I'm experiencing source in a form that source can understand through me. And so when you experience anything, whether it's contact, telepathy, seeing a craft,
Mm-hmm.
spirits, distortions, lights, you're experiencing what source can see through you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the trick, if there is one, is for us to increase our vibration so that we become a bigger lens for source, that we have a more of an organic existence where rather than trying to hold within ourselves some certain construct and belief system, that we're able to understand that we're just a lens for source.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these things, the discussions of consciousness, materialism, dimensions, they're just frameworks for people to have discussions in. The problem is when the framework becomes the actual defining moment.
Yeah.
And the defining moment means that you can't move out of that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another thing I've also learned is moving from this physical state to any other state is also about responsibility. We can't abdicate responsibility and say we're all going into a fifth dimensional state. How does that work? Do we take our families with us? Are we taking our house with us, our car, our animals, our dogs, cats? So we need to understand you already are in those states.
You just need to learn to develop some control, recognize that, and then work with that. And you can experience so much more already.
Something that was, I was trying to put this into some sort of context because it all sounds so etheric. And I thought, well, okay, I'll think of breakfast. And I was thinking about breakfast, and it didn't matter how much breakfast I ate, I was still hungry. Then I sat down and I ate breakfast, and I was no longer hungry. And so from a perspective of consciousness, we need to abide by the rules that we're in. So if we're in a three-dimensional space, we can't sit there. Well, you can if you want, but you'll be pretty hungry. You can't just imagine that you're eating. You actually need to abide by the rules of the construct that Source has created for you. When you're in spirit realm, you need to abide by the rules of the construct that Source has given spirit realm as well. And this then creates a framework for all consciousness outside of the void to understand its extensualized state and to understand itself. When you hear somebody talk about dimensions and moving into dimensions, think about that you're probably already doing that anyway, but you need to become a better lens to allow those experiences to come from where you are now back to Source as an experience. I hope you all have a great year, and we'll be seeing you soon. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.